Getting out of Ethan Miller's bed, he lazily handed me my underwear. I changed the code to the front door. Don't come over anymore unless it's important. I froze and asked reflexively, why? He curved his lips into a smile. She agreed to be my girlfriend yesterday. I'm afraid she'll see you and be unhappy. I've been pursuing her for a long time. When I opened my eyes, my whole body was aching terribly. Even after so many times, I still wasn't used to Ethan Miller's beast-like stamina. Turning around, he was already awake, his beautiful latissimus dorsi muscles bare in the sunlight, showing a faint honeyed tone, his half-open eyes lazy. Why are you up so early? His voice was still hoarse. The stiff ache in my waist made me frown. I bent down to put on my stockings, only to find that yesterday's stockings had been torn to shreds by him and were completely unwearable. Ethan Miller rolled over, his fingers picking up my underwear and handing it to me, a hint of a mischievous smile in his eyes. You're how old and still wearing this kind of white lace? Isn't it outdated? Get something new. I took the underwear. Okay, I'll buy some new underwear. What kind do you like? Ethan Miller cut me off. No need. I'm changing the code to the front door later. Don't come over anymore unless it's important. I was stunned. I had been in this kind of relationship with Ethan Miller for a year. At first, he would call me over every few days. Later, except when he had to work overtime, I practically lived at his place. I would do some housework for him. When he got off work early, we would curl up on the sofa together, watch movies, eat popcorn, and then get intimate before the movie ended. Like a real couple. Slowly, I started getting used to this life. Sometimes, I couldn't help but think that maybe Ethan Miller had also gotten used to my presence, and if we could build a family together in the future, we would be very happy. But now he was telling me not to come anymore. I said subconsciously, are your family coming over? Or are you busy with work lately? I can. He got up and looked at me, his thin lips curving. No, she agreed to be my girlfriend. It took me a moment to realize who he meant by she. I had recently heard that Ethan Miller was pursuing a girl who had just graduated from college. Over the years, women around him had come and gone like fish crossing a river. The longest relationship had lasted no more than 3 months. I had thought this time was just another one of his fleeting interests and hadn't paid much attention. I said dryly, are you serious? Ethan Miller smiled. Serious. She's different from all those other women, Sarah. You don't know. She's really pure. I don't want her to know about us. She'd be unhappy. I've been pursuing her for a long time. The sunlight streaming through the gap in the curtains was truly dazzling. It made me feel dizzy. Okay. After half a second, I said calmly, then I'll move my things out today. No need to rush. Ethan Miller casually grabbed a pair of gray lounge pants and put them on. Didn't you give up your apartment? Stay for a couple more days and find a place before you go. I closed my eyes. A stinging pain exploded in my eyes, making me feel a bit lost. No, I'll move out today. I didn't know why I was in such a hurry. Ethan Miller was right, I didn't actually have anywhere to go. But I just wanted to leave immediately. I felt like my entire skin had been stripped off by Ethan Miller and exposed to the sun, and I was about to be swallowed by shame. I didn't have many things at Ethan Miller's place. Most of what I bought were pots and pans for cooking for him, the bedding set for the bed, and some miscellaneous throw pillows and decorations. The apartment had a minimalist style. He had once said helplessly that ever since I came, the place had gotten more and more cluttered. But the things that belonged solely to me fit into just one box. As I was leaving, Ethan Miller called out to me. He stood bare-chested against the doorframe, lighting a cigarette. Sarah, you're not getting any younger. You should find someone to settle down with. He exhaled smoke, a hint of a smile on his lips. From now on, we're still friends. I understood what he meant. I nodded and said, okay. The winter in New York City was damp and cold. The temperature wasn't very low, but the chill felt like it was trying to burrow into your bones. It seemed to be snowing. Something icy and wet landed on the tip of my nose. I looked up. The sky, which had been clear a moment ago, seemed to have suddenly turned overcast, and countless tiny snowflakes were falling with the wind. It hadn't snowed in New York City for several years. Ever since Ethan Miller and I came to this city, I hadn't seen snow, it seemed. I suddenly remembered the snow back home in Seaview, Maine. In a small coastal town in Maine, once winter arrived, the moisture in the sea breeze would turn into heavy snow, big, fluffy snowflakes that could fall all night. The next day, you'd wake up to snow up to your knees, and everything would be a vast expanse of white. It felt invigorating, unlike this New York snow, which lingered and felt suffocating. I put my luggage aside and simply sat at the bus stop by the side of the road to call home. Mom answered the phone quickly, her voice excited yet a little cautious. "Sarah?" The cold air filled my nostrils, and I rubbed my stinging nasal passages. "Mom, I want to eat your homemade lasagna." Mom sounded happy. "Okay, should I make you some lasagna? I'll check plane tickets. It's close to the Christmas and New Year holidays, so tickets might be hard to buy." I cut her off. "No need, Mom. I'm coming home for the holidays this year." Mom paused, a hint of delight in her voice. "Really?" "Yeah." I tilted my head back. A snowflake seemed to have gotten in my eye. I blinked my slight moist eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Mom, I'm planning to move back to Seaview, Maine." That afternoon, I resigned from my job. My boss tried hard to keep me. "Are you asking for something regarding your salary? Tell me, we can discuss it. The department manager is transferring next year, and you're the most likely person in our department to get promoted. It would be a shame to leave now." I smiled and shook my head. "Thank you, Ms. Wang, but I want to go home and spend time with my parents." I had always been someone not ambitious, with no dreams of wanting to make it big. I just wanted to live my own simple life. I came to New York City because of Ethan Miller. He wanted to develop his career in New York City, so I followed him without hesitation and stayed. I thought if I stayed by his side long enough, he would see me. But it turns out that when it comes to matters of the heart, effort isn't enough. On the way to the hotel, a bookstore on the street side was playing a song. A female voice sang powerfully, "Unconsciously loving to the point of not daring to take risks, becoming your puppet for 1 or 2 years, only then did I see how pathetic I was. Loving to the point of compromise, still unresolved in the end, tying you down, not letting you fly, history keeps repeating, making me so tired." I listened quietly for a while. The first time I met Ethan Miller was when I was 17. Now I was 28, having compromised for Ethan Miller all these years. I was almost 30. This 12-year absurdity should end now. That night, I dreamed of young Ethan Miller for the first time in a long while. 17-year-old Ethan Miller transferred to our small town of Seaview in his sophomore year. While most boys were still messy, he wore a black down jacket, his messy hair falling across his forehead, and he had a tall, slender figure. He was so handsome he looked like someone from another world. That afternoon, almost all the girls in the entire grade ran to the Y&Ws to watch him. A few days later, even the school beauty came to give him a love letter. But he ignored everyone, always sleeping alone at the back of the classroom. He seemed uninterested in everything. He didn't bring anything to class, didn't listen to lectures, and the teachers didn't bother him. Only occasionally during exams would he poke my back. "Hey, let me copy your answers." He seemed certain I wouldn't refuse him. And I really didn't refuse him. Because of this, many boys disliked him, saying he was putting on airs. Thugs looking for trouble would come in waves every few days. During that time, I saw Ethan Miller fighting in the alley behind the school almost every day. That day, I passed by and saw him leaning alone in the alley, smoking, his face covered in injuries. After hesitating for a moment, I stopped my bicycle, took a band-aid from my pocket, and handed it to him. "Your face is bleeding." He looked up and gave me a cold glance. "Beat it." At that time, I thought this person was really annoying. What was he acting so cool for? I didn't even like him. After that, no matter how he poked me for answers, I never paid attention to him again. A month later, fewer girls came to see Ethan Miller, but rumors about him in the class increased. Some said that the black down jacket Ethan Miller wore only once was from a brand we had never heard of, costing over 30,000 yuan for one jacket. Some said Ethan Miller was an illegitimate child, and his mother was a mistress. He and his mother were discovered by his father's legal wife. His father didn't want them anymore, and his mother couldn't make it in New York City, so she brought him back to Seaview, Maine. All the gazes on Ethan Miller, whether adoring, disdainful, or curious, carried a subtle hint of something else. That evening, as I walked home from school past that alley, I found Ethan Miller lying on the ground. He looked like he had just been in a brutal fight. His knuckles were covered in blood, his handsome face was full of cuts and bruises, and blood was flowing from his forehead. I didn't want to bother with him initially, but seeing him lying there in the snow with his eyes closed. The snow kept falling. He was almost half buried in the snow, his face completely pale. I was also afraid he might actually be dead, so I carefully walked over and touched him. "Ethan Miller, are you okay?" He didn't move. I started to get worried and took out my phone. "I'm calling 911. Ethan Miller finally opened his eyes slightly and frowned. "Why is it you again?" I was a little annoyed, but at that moment, I didn't care about much else. "You're seriously injured. I'll take you to the hospital." "Mind your own business," he scoffed and then closed his eyes again. I ignored him and called 911. He was wearing very little, just a black hoodie. I hesitated for a moment, then took off my red down jacket and covered him with it. Ethan Miller was startled. As I was leaving, he called out to me. I turned back. My red down jacket was several years old, a very outdated style. It looked a bit comical covering Ethan Miller. His eyes were dark. "Didn't you know my mom is a mistress?" I got on my bicycle. "Heard about it." "So? Then why did you save me?" "Your mom is your mom, and you are you." I thought for a moment. "Besides, while being a mistress isn't good, it's not a capital offense, is it?" Ethan Miller didn't say anything. Snowflakes fell on his slightly trembling eyelashes. He stared at me intently. The sound of the ambulance quickly grew louder. I waved my hand. "Don't forget to give me back my jacket." After that, Ethan Miller didn't come to school for a week. The boys who fought with him didn't fare much better. After Ethan Miller's mom came to the school in a furious rage, those few boys were all expelled. A week later, Ethan Miller showed up. He handed me a blue down jacket, turned his head away, and said, "Your jacket was damaged. I'm compensating you with a new one." I didn't feel like there was anything wrong and just accepted it. It was much later that I found out the price of that jacket. It could buy all the clothes I had ever owned since I was born. Things progressed naturally after that. Ethan Miller's attitude towards me gradually improved, and I became his only friend in this small town. Before the college entrance exams, Ethan Miller suddenly asked me, "Sarah, do you want to go to the US?" I was surprised. He lowered his head, his ear tips turning red. "My mom is planning for me to go to the US after the exams. Do you want to go with me?" I said with a bitter smile, "Big shot, how could my family afford to send me abroad?" "Then where are you planning to go?" I thought for a moment. "Boston, maybe. I'm afraid I won't adapt to the climate in the South. Boston is also close to my home, so if I want to go back in the future, it's just a few hours by train." Ethan Miller reached out and pulled my knit cap down over my eyes, then didn't say anything else. Later, when the teacher asked everyone to write down their dream universities, I thought Ethan Miller would write down a university in the US. But he wrote the same university in Boston as me. I was surprised. "Ethan Miller, weren't you planning to go to the US?" He lay slumped on his desk and mumbled, "I suddenly feel like there's nothing so great about the US. Boston is pretty good too." But 3 days before the exams, Ethan Miller tore up that piece of paper. I asked him about it, but he just stayed silent. That night, I found out that Ethan Miller's father's legal wife and son had both died in the same car accident. His father told his mother to bring him back. After losing one son, his father finally started paying attention to this only remaining son, saying that if he stayed in New York City, he would give his mother a legitimate status and let him inherit the family business. He said he didn't care about the old man's money, but his mother slapped him and cried, "What do you think I've suffered all these years for? Who was it all for? As long as your father marries me, your mother won't be a mistress anymore, and no one will ever say you're a mistress's son again." The summer cicadas buzzed, making my head throb. Under the shade of the birch trees, Ethan Miller kept his head down and didn't look at me. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I can't go to Boston with you." His voice was still hoarse from crying, his eyes red-rimmed. I thought for a moment, stood on tiptoe, and tapped his head. "It's okay. Then I'll go to New York City with you." When I opened my eyes, it was already morning. Perhaps because I had gotten wet in the snow yesterday, I felt a slight headache. However, my friend's birthday was tonight, and I had already bought a gift, so I had to go. I picked up my phone, and Ethan Miller's message was the first one. He sent a picture. It was a pair of Snoopy pajamas. "Forgot your pajamas. Come get them tonight." They were matching pajamas I had secretly bought before, one for him, one for me. Occasionally, when he wore them, I would feel a false sense of happiness, always feeling like he briefly belonged to me for a second. But thinking about it now, it was pitifully laughable. I replied with a few words, "Throw them away. I don't want them." He didn't reply. I rolled over and covered my eyes with my arm. After arriving in New York City, a lot happened to Ethan Miller. I found out that his mother wasn't actually a mistress. His mother had been with his father first back then, and his mother truly gave birth to him because she loved his father. It was just that later, his father found a woman with a suitable family background for an arranged marriage and abandoned them, mother and son. Even after marrying his mother, Ethan Miller's father still caroused outside, even trying to have more sons. His mother had a very difficult life, arguing with his father every day. Finally, she suffered from severe depression and jumped to her death. After that, his father seemed to suddenly settle down and never looked for women outside again. But the rift between father and son was irreparable. After that, Ethan Miller never went back home. He started drinking heavily, street racing, and smoking a lot. He became like other rich kids, partying every night. He had once been aloof to all girls, but now he was a seasoned player, navigating through the flower patch. The clean-cut Ethan Miller seemed to have become a mirage. Just a fleeting illusion in my memory. That night, at my friend's party, I saw Ethan Miller's new girlfriend for the first time. She was a fair-skinned girl, wearing a camel overcoat, her chestnut-long curly hair wrapped in a cashmere scarf. When she smiled, her eyes curved into crescents. She looked very serene. Not stunningly beautiful, but very pure. Ethan Miller was right. She was really different from his previous girlfriends. "You must be Sarah." She bounced over, took my hand, and smiled. "Ethan talks about you often. He's such a liar. He said you weren't pretty, but you're so beautiful." Being women, I could easily detect the hostility in her eyes. It seemed a woman's intuition was truly accurate. She must have known that my relationship with Ethan Miller was unusual. Just as I was about to speak, Ethan Miller interrupted me. He held the girl's hand. "Emily Carter, she's your future sister-in-law." Everyone started teasing. "This is the first sister-in-law Ethan's brought around. Looks like this one is the real deal." Future sister-in-law is really something. So many girls have liked Ethan over the years, but no one could ever win him over. "When's the wedding reception? I'll be sure to bring a big cash gift." Emily Carter blushed and leaned against Ethan Miller, smiling with pursed lips without saying anything. Ethan Miller shielded her. All right, Emile. Why is shy? Don't scare her." My friends laughed. "Already protective? This is too much PDA today." We found seats. Before, Ethan Miller would always sit next to me in these situations. This time, perhaps out of habit, he sat directly to my left. Just as I was about to remind him, Emily Carter walked up to me. She pursed her lips and bravely said, "Sarah, could you switch seats, please? After all, you're still single. It's probably better to keep your distance from a man who has a girlfriend, don't you think?" I frowned. I had sat down first. Why should I move now? What kind of logic was this? But Ethan Miller nudged me. Don't upset your future sister-in-law, Sarah. Just move. I glanced at him, got up, and moved to the seats opposite them. It was a lively night. I don't know how much wine was opened. During dinner, Emily Carter nudged Ethan Miller. Ethan, I want to eat that fish. Ethan Miller said reflexively, aren't you allergic to fish? Emily Carter went quiet, and my chopsticks paused. After a long moment, Emily Carter said with a somewhat awkward expression, Ethan, I'm not allergic to fish. Ethan Miller stopped his movement. Oh, really? Maybe I misremembered. Emily Carter stared at him. Who is allergic to fish? Ethan Miller said nonchalantly, forgot. I've had too much to drink. Emily Carter glanced at me, her face darkening. Then she picked up a piece of fish and placed it on my plate, looking straight at me with her big eyes. Sarah, this fish is quite good. You should try it. My friends next to us didn't notice what had just happened. One, tipsy, said, future sister-in-law, you don't know, Sarah can't eat fish. She's allergic to fish. Emily Carter said flatly, oh, really? After several rounds of drinks, everyone was a little drunk. One friend, red-faced, said, Ethan, we all bet on whether you'd settle down before you were 30. Didn't expect you to find true love so soon. Another friend, also drunk, squinted and chuckled foolishly. Yeah, we all thought you and Sarah were so close that you two would end up together. Emily Carter's face was so dark it looked like it could drip water. Ethan Miller suddenly curved his lips. Really? How could we possibly be together? We're best friends. That's hilarious. He actually started laughing, as if it was the most ridiculous joke. My friends also laughed along. Exactly. Now we know you two are just platonic friends, ha ha ha. I also started laughing. Right, how could I possibly be with Ethan Miller? That's too funny. Ethan Miller walked over and put his arm around my shoulder. He was probably drunk, his face flushed, his eyes filled with moisture. He tilted his head and said, Sarah, you don't really like me, do you? In that moment, I wanted to see something in his eyes. But there was nothing. He just stared at me like that, as if we really were just the best friends he claimed we were. My lips curved upwards. How could I? Good, Ethan Miller nodded. He shook my shoulder gently. We're the best of friends. Despite drinking so much, I had never felt so clear-headed. I repeated, yes, best friends. The next morning, I bought a plane ticket flying directly home. Before boarding, I checked my phone one last time. Ethan Miller had posted a new update on his social media feed. It was a picture with Emily Carter, no caption, just their hands clasped together, fingers intertwined. It was him going public. Below were messages of congratulations from their friends. I looked at it for a while, then took out my phone card and threw it in the trash can. Going home seemed easier than I had expected. Mom and Dad picked me up. As the Christmas and New Year holidays approached, Christmas lights/holiday decorations hung everywhere in the streets and alleys, and shops played Michael Bublé singing a holiday tune. It wasn't as bustling here as New York City, but the lingering smell of fireworks around made me sudden. Feel very secure. Mom was overjoyed because I hadn't been home for the holidays in 3 years, having stayed with Ethan Miller. But after a moment of happiness, she couldn't help but start nagging. You're almost 30 this year, how come you still don't have anyone? Mr. Peterson's daughter next door is even a year younger than you, and her child is already walking around. Oh, I saw the child the other day, so chubby and adorable. The young girls at Mom's workplace are all going on blind dates. Oh, right, a young man recently moved in next door to us. He's very handsome. I'll introduce you to him when the time comes, Mom spoke while glancing at my expression. Before, I was very resistant to blind dates. In the years I liked Ethan Miller, my world revolved around him. After that one night that led to our complicated relationship, I thought I had a chance, and I only had eyes for him. So every time Mom brought up blind dates or marriage, I would get annoyed and refuse to listen. However, this time, looking at the red paper scraps from the fireworks outside the window, I suddenly felt very tired. I was exhausted. Settling down wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I said, okay. Don't be so resistant. Mom knows you like that guy named Ethan, but what did you say? I lowered my eyelashes. I said okay, introduce us. After dinner that night, I habitually picked up my phone but received a video call from Ethan Miller on WeChat. I had already switched to a new WeChat account, but I still had many friends on my old one, so I logged in occasionally these days. He seemed to have completely forgotten the past few days, and said naturally, "Why couldn't I reach you on your phone?" Before I could speak, he continued, "Never mind. I've prepared all the stuff for the holidays. Is there anything else you want? I'll have my assistant buy it." I suddenly remembered the year Ethan Miller's mother passed away. That year, I went back to Seaview for the holidays. Oh. And Christmas Eve/New Year's Eve, I video called Ethan Miller, wanting to wish him happy holidays in advance. It took a long time for the video call to be answered. The screen was pitch black, and I could only see a single reddish-orange glow point slowly fading. Ethan Miller's voice was hoarse. "What is it?" As the screen adjusted to the light, I realized Ethan Miller was sitting alone on the balcony, surrounded by scattered wine bottles and cigarette butts. Outside the window were the lights of thousands of homes and brilliant fireworks, but all that festivity seemed to have nothing to do with him. He was just sitting there alone on the windowsill, watching other people's completeness, smoking alone in the night. In that moment, my heart ached for him. My eyes stung, but I forced a smile and said, "Just wanted to wish you happy holidays in advance. Are you going to give me a cash gift?" He seemed to chuckle softly, and then I heard the sound of a money transfer notification. He transferred 100,000 yuan to me. I was stunned. After a long time, Ethan Miller suddenly said in a low voice, "Sarah, come back soon." His voice was carried away by the wind. I didn't hear the last few words. I didn't know if he meant, "I'm very lonely," or "I miss you very much." I didn't care about anything else. I quickly told my parents there was an urgent matter at work and bought the earliest plane ticket back to New York City. At 3 a.m., New York City was still bustling, with bright lights everywhere and traffic flowing endlessly. But the lights in Ethan Miller's apartment were all off. I ran upstairs, breathless, and knocked hard on the door. "Ethan Miller, open up." I thought Ethan Miller was already asleep, but he opened the door quickly, staring at me intently, looking unusually stunned. He stood frozen. "Why are you back?" I smiled with my eyes curved. "I came to spend the holidays with you." Ethan Miller didn't say anything, just kept staring at me. Just as I was starting to feel awkward under his gaze, he suddenly grabbed me and pulled me into a hug. So tightly, as if he wanted to press me into his body. From then on, I would spend the holidays with Ethan Miller every year before going home. This seemed to have become an unspoken custom between us. I just hadn't expected that this year, even with Emily Carter by his side, he would still ask me to spend the holidays with him. I glanced out the window and said in a low voice, "I went back to Seaview." Ethan Miller froze. He seemed not to have expected me to say that. After a moment, he said "Oh" and pretended to be casual. "Right, you haven't been home for the holidays in so many years. It makes sense to go back and see your family." "Yeah." I held my phone. Silence fell between the two ends of the line. I vaguely heard Emily Carter's voice. "Ethan, hurry up. How do you adjust this hot water?" "Coming," Ethan Miller replied. "Then I'm hanging up." I pursed my lips. "Okay." Ethan Miller's voice was emotionless. I lowered the phone from my ear and pressed the hang-up button. The screen went dark. I thought I wouldn't be able to sleep, but I fell asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow that night. When I woke up, it was already past 2 a.m. I was woken up by thirst. Winters in the north were dry and cold, and I was still getting used to it after returning. I went downstairs to drink a glass of water. However, just as I was about to go back upstairs, I suddenly heard a faint noise from the bathroom. Someone had broken into the house. My body tensed up, and the hair on my arms stood on end. My heart skipped a beat. I held my breath and, after a pause, cautiously stepped barefoot onto the floor. My phone was upstairs. I had to go up and call the police. But just as I was about to reach the stairs next to the bathroom door suddenly opened. My scalp tingled with fright. I instinctively grabbed an umbrella nearby and swung it wildly at the person, but they grabbed the umbrella, and just as I was about to shout, they yanked me towards them and covered my mouth. I belatedly realized that the intruder wasn't wearing clothes. My bare back, exposed by my camisole, pressed directly against his naked upper body, which carried a faint scent of verbena mixed with steam. Damn it, not only did this intruder break into our house, but he wasn't wearing clothes either. Afraid he would suffocate me, I twisted my head and bit down hard on his forearm, struggling frantically. But the man's strength was too great. He held me tightly. When I realized I couldn't break free, I immediately chickened out. I was scared, angry, and terrified, afraid he would kill me to silence me after being discovered, and my parents were upstairs. With a trembling, tearful voice, I pleaded, "Please spare me, sir. There's my dad's hidden money in the cabinet next to the windowsill, maybe a couple $100. If that's not enough, I can transfer money to you via Venmo, but I don't have much either, just a few $1,000s on hand. Let me go, take the money, and let's pretend this never happened. I haven't seen you today. I'm still young, I haven't even dated or gotten married yet, I don't want to die. Please." A light chuckle came from beside my ear, and then the living room light turned on. After my eyes adjusted to the blinding white light, I saw a young man standing in front of me, his upper body bare. Tiny droplets of water flowed down his beautiful, well-defined muscles to his waist, then splashed onto the floor. He was very tall, a head taller than me, probably around 6 feet 2 inches. Standing in front of him, I felt like a scared little bird. I stared at him for a while and said with a complicated tone, "Big brother, with a face like yours, you could make tens of thousands a night selling yourself. Why would you be so desperate to steal from my house? My family is very poor." The man's cherry-colored, thin lips lifted into a slight curve. Only then did I realize his voice was also very pleasant. "You must be Aunt Carol's daughter, right? I'm the tenant next door. The water heater over there is broken, so Aunt Carol told me to come here to shower." Sorry, did I scare you? I was confused for a moment, then remembered Mom mentioning on the way earlier that the place next door was rented out. Our family had bought 2 adjacent small houses by the sea. Although houses in Seaview weren't worth much, the view was beautiful. The balcony directly faced the ocean, and as tourism had gradually developed over the years, people had started renting houses here. I was so embarrassed I wanted to disappear into the ground, my face red as I said, "I'm so sorry." The man waved his hand. "It's my fault. I was startled too just now, ouch." There was a round bite mark on his forearm, which had started to bleed. I was terribly ashamed. "I'm truly sorry. I'll get some antiseptic for you." Before coming back, I never imagined that my first night home would involve sitting on my sofa with a strange man, almost head to head. I pressed a cotton ball to his wound and learned that his name was Julian Vance. He was a painter who had recently come here for inspiration. "It looks quite deep," I said, frowning at his wound. "Do you need a tetanus shot?" Julian Vance stroked his chin and said seriously, "I think I need a rabies shot." It took me a moment to realize he was calling me a dog. I couldn't help but glare at him, but because I was in the wrong, my glare wasn't very convincing. Julian Vance laughed. "Don't mention it. Your bite mark is quite round. It has a certain aesthetic." Mom really liked Julian Vance and often invited him over for meals. She would secretly wink at me. "Julian is such a nice young man. He often helps your dad and me with chores. Look at him, he's so handsome. If you two get married, your kids will definitely be," I said helplessly, "Oh, that's enough." It wasn't that I looked down on Julian Vance, but I had once seen the overcoat he wore. That coat he casually tossed on the back of my sofa. I had seen Ethan Miller wear a similar one. It was an overcoat made by a century-old Italian custom tailoring family, costing at least 6 figures. He was also a big shot, from a world different from mine. However, Julian Vance was very good at winning over older people. He called Mom and Dad Mrs. Collins and Mr. Collins. Ever since he arrived, he was the one who carried the water dispenser jugs, and even my picky dad couldn't stop praising him. Even on Christmas and New Year's Eve, Mom invited him over, saying they would have Christmas Eve dinner/New Year's Eve dinner together. I secretly complained to Mom. Why did you invite him over? Mom glared at me. Julian is all alone here. How pathetic. Can you bear to see him all by himself, not even having homemade lasagna? I had no choice. I watched Julian Vance sit down at the dining room table, his striking eyes twinkling with a smile. Mrs. Collins, your homemade lasagna is delicious. Mom's smile stretched from ear to ear, and she kept serving him more lasagna. If it's good, eat more. As the conversation flowed, Mom couldn't help but repeat herself, glancing at me with a sigh. Sarah, when are you going to bring a man home for Mom? Julian Vance was still there, and I felt a bit awkward. Mom, what are you talking about? Julian Vance looked at me. Sarah is so beautiful, I'm sure many people are pursuing her. Mrs. Collins, don't worry. Mom pursed her lips. Don't worry about what? This child takes after me, she's been beautiful since she was little. I'll show you some pictures of her when she was a kid later, I couldn't help but say, Mom. But Julian Vance curved his lips. Okay. After dinner, Mom actually got out the photo albums and looked through them with Julian Vance. This was when she was 100 days old, so chubby. So cute. See how fair Sarah was when she was little, with big eyes? The neighbors loved her back then, said she looked like a doll. This was her elementary school performance. Oh, look at that bright blush, it's hilarious. Mom hadn't finished flipping through the album when Dad called her away. I walked over, feeling a little embarrassed. That's just how my mom is, don't mind her. You don't have to look if you don't want to, but Julian Vance looked up, his clear pupils shimmering with amusement. I don't mind. Mrs. Collins is right, you were really cute when you were little. I froze. 11 After watching the New Year's Eve broadcast/holiday special, the fireworks outside hadn't stopped. Fireworks weren't banned in Seaview. All sorts of colorful fireworks were flying everywhere. Although they looked cheap, they were still quite brilliant when they burst across the sky. I stood on the balcony with a bottle of beer, still unable to shake off my friend's words. She said Ethan Miller was taking Emily Carter on a vacation to a luxury resort in the Maldives. Her words were full of frustration. You've been by his side for so long, how come you never won him over? If you'd ended up with him, you'd have saved yourself decades of struggling. I smiled helplessly. How pathetic. They were probably having a sweet time as a couple right now. In the future, his New Year's probably wouldn't need me anymore. Just like his life no longer needed my presence. When my friends found out about my complicated relationship with Ethan Miller, they also called me pathetic. I knew I was pretty pathetic. He had never said he liked me, yet I kept following him in this unclear way. I loved him too much. I couldn't bear to lose him. Even this kind of self-deceptive intimacy made me feel like I somehow possessed him. But those false joys were like the fireworks in the sky, fleeting, extinguished in an instant. Mind if I join you? My thoughts were interrupted. I turned around. Julian Vance had a cigarette dangling from his mouth and tilted his head towards me. After I shook my head, he walked over and cupped his hands around the cigarette to light it, taking a deep drag. I made small talk. Are you okay being here alone for the holidays? Where are your parents? Julian Vance exhaled smoke and said faintly, they're in a very distant place. I wanted to slap myself and quickly apologized. I'm so sorry. Julian Vance glanced at me, amusement in his eyes. They're on a cruise ship to Antarctica. I shut my mouth, feeling like an idiot. Julian Vance couldn't help but laugh. Smoke choked him, and he coughed a few times, then grabbed the beer next to me and took a gulp. I said dryly, I drank from that one. He grabbed an unopened bottle of beer and handed it to me, while holding my bottle himself, saying naturally, what do people usually do for fun around here in the winter? He had steered the conversation away. I thought for a moment. There's not much to do here. It's too cold in the winter. You can go see a movie. Julian Vance nodded slightly, indicating he understood. I broke the silence, curious. Why did you come here? For inspiration, Julian Vance narrowed his eyes, looking into the distance. Don't you think winter here is especially beautiful? That's true. So when are you leaving? Julian Vance didn't answer this question immediately. After a while, he extinguished the cigarette butt on the can, a subtle curve on his lips. I was planning to leave in the spring, but now I suddenly want to stay longer. Why? Because my phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. I gestured to Julian Vance, and he tactfully stepped off the balcony. Hello? There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Then Ethan Miller's voice came through. Sarah, did you change your phone number? 12. I wanted to cut off all contact with Ethan Miller, so I only told 2 close friends that I had changed my phone number. I wasn't using my old WeChat account anymore and planned to delete it after sorting out my contacts. But it was too easy for Ethan Miller to find someone. I thought our separation was a mutually understood agreement, but I didn't expect him to look for me. I mumbled, yeah. Ethan Miller paused, then said in a low voice, when are you coming back? I'll pick you up. Fireworks exploded in the distance, their fleeting brilliance leaving only scattered ashes a second later. I took a deep breath of cold air and felt my throat tighten. Ethan Miller, I said softly, I'm not coming back. There was a long silence on his end. After a few seconds, Ethan Miller's voice was devoid of emotion. Not coming back? What does that mean? I opened the beer, and white foam overflowed. It means I'm not coming back to New York City. I held the can, feeling the cold spread from my palm into my body. My heart ached in dull throbs, feeling somewhat numb from the alcohol. I planned to settle down in Seaview, Maine. Ethan Miller, you were right, I'm not getting any younger. I should find someone to settle down with. Only breathing could be heard on the other end of the line. I was silent for a moment. Then I'll hang up. If you don't need anything in the future, just don't look for me. As I was about to hang up, Ethan Miller suddenly raised his voice. Sarah, what the hell do you mean? Explain yourself. Julian Vance suddenly pushed open the balcony door. Need more beer? Ethan Miller froze, then demanded, Sarah, who are you with? I didn't want to talk to him anymore. I hung up the phone and blocked the number. Sorry, did I interrupt you? Julian Vance leaned back against the wall. I shook my head. No boyfriend? He suddenly seemed curious. No, I took a sip of beer. The cold liquid flowed down my esophagus, and I couldn't help but shiver. An overcoat carrying body heat was suddenly draped over me. I tilted my head. Julian Vance sighed. Naturally, don't get cold. I don't remember what time I drank with Julian Vance that night. My parents didn't bother us. We just sat on the balcony, drinking and chatting. When I woke up, I was already in bed in my bedroom. I went downstairs, rubbing my sleepy eyes, and found Julian Vance already dressed, sitting at the dining table, peeling garlic and chatting with Mom. I couldn't help but marvel. Some people look like a poster even when peeling garlic. No wonder he's a painter, his aesthetic sense must be high from looking at his own face every day. Mom frowned and lectured me. What time is it and you're still not up? Today is New Year's Day, and Julian has already come over for holiday greetings/visits. I glared at Julian Vance. We were just drinking together yesterday, how could he roll out of bed so early and make me look bad today? Mom noticed Julian Vance's rolled-up sleeve showing the wound on his forearm and exclaimed, oh dear, what bit you? Such a big bite mark. I stopped walking. Julian Vance smiled lightly. Oh, a little curly-haired dog. Whether it's a straight-haired or curly-haired dog, you should get a vaccine. Did you get vaccinated? Yes, I did, Mrs. Collins. I secretly gnashed my teeth. Mom continued to chatter. It's boring for you young people to stay home. Go out and walk around. Don't think this place is small, there are many beautiful spots. Julian Vance lowered his long eyelashes, looking a little disappointed. Mrs. Collins, I don't have any friends here, and I don't know where to go. Mom's heart ached for him. She pointed at me and said, she's just idle at home all day. Let her go out and explore with you. Julian Vance smiled, clearly pleased. Oh, Thank you, Mrs. Collins. I rolled my eyes on the side. This Julian Vance guy looked like someone who seemed unattainable, but I didn't expect him to be so manipulative. 13 The next morning, I quickly got ready, planning to go out with Julian Vance after breakfast. Mom was still busy in the kitchen when we heard a knock at the door outside. It must be Julian Vance coming over to freeload on breakfast again. I opened the door grumpily. Coming to freeload again, my voice got stuck in my throat. My eyes widened. The person standing outside was Ethan Miller. He wore a black overcoat, a layer of snow covering his shoulders. He blinked, and melting snowflakes wet his eyelashes. I stammered. What are you doing here? Came to wish Mr. and Mrs. Collins happy holidays. You've taken my cash gifts for so many years, it's about time I got one, right? Mom came out of the kitchen, holding a spatula, excitedly. Julian is here? Mrs. Collins made your favorite savory rolls. She looked at Ethan Miller in surprise. Ethan Miller nodded at Mom. Happy holidays, Mrs. Collins. I'm Ethan Miller, Sarah's friend. Saying that, he put the large bags he was carrying in the living room and said politely, "Please forgive my unannounced visit, Mr. and Mrs. Collins." I glanced at the large bags. All sorts of expensive supplements/luxury health products, and an Hermes bag. Even if my parents emptied their wallets, they couldn't give a cash gift worth that much. Mom awkwardly put down the spatula. No problem, she racked her brain for conversation topics. Ethan, have you eaten? If not, join us. I thought Ethan Miller would refuse. After all, when had a big shot like him ever eaten in a setting like my home? But Ethan Miller nodded and said obediently, "Not yet, thank you, Mrs. Collins." I watched him secretly, thinking he must be out of his mind. My parents were polite but distant towards Ethan Miller's arrival. My parents weren't fools, they knew who was the reason for my struggles all these years. Actually, it wasn't his fault that Ethan Miller didn't like me. But of course, my parents thought their daughter was perfect in every way, and anyone who didn't see that was blind. They kept a cold-faced towards him. After a while, the doorbell rang again. Mom went to open the door. Julian Vance came in carrying a watermelon. "Mrs. Collins, I saw someone selling watermelons just now, so I bought one." Mom's expression immediately changed. She smiled warmly. "Oh, Julian, you didn't have to bring anything. Watermelons are so expensive in winter. This child wastes money." "It's not expensive." "Mrs. Collins, did you make savory rolls this morning? I can smell them." "Yes." Mom quickly got Julian Vance slippers. "Your favorite. Eat as much as you want today, there's plenty." Yes, Julian Vance had already gotten his own pair of slippers at my house. I figure if I had come home half a year later, my parents would have practically adopted him. The dining room instantly became lively. Julian Vance chatted with Mom about everyday things. Ethan Miller was silent and didn't eat much. I really didn't understand how Julian Vance, such a handsome and wealthy man who was also a painter, should have been aloof. How could he chat with a middle-aged woman about things like Mrs. Evans's daughter marrying a man with dyed hair and having a child out of wedlock, almost driving Mrs. Evans to death, and then Mr. Davis in the East End losing his reputation by having an affair with his housekeeper and wanting to leave his wife with nothing in the divorce? What in the world was all this about? Until Julian Vance asked me, "Sarah, where are we going today?" Ethan Miller suddenly put down his chopsticks and looked coldly at Julian Vance. "Excuse me, who are you?" It was a rude question, but Julian Vance wasn't offended. He smiled and said, "Oh, I live here." Ethan Miller's face instantly darkened. That meal was incredibly awkward for me. After eating, I immediately pulled Ethan Miller upstairs. "What are you even doing here?" I frowned. "Shouldn't you be in the Maldives with Emily Carter?" Ethan Miller turned his head. Suddenly didn't feel like going. He started to get angry and questioned me. "Sarah, why did you suddenly go back to Seaview, Maine? Didn't have enough money in New York City? No apartment, or no car?" "I'll give you money, an apartment, a car, I have it all. Come back and I'll give it all to you." My gaze fell on Ethan Miller's face. The arrogance in his eyes was too sharp, it should have made him look somewhat harsh. But his face was too handsome, turning that hint of harshness into a confident, effortless charm. So many years had passed in a flash, and he hadn't changed much. I pursed my lips and smiled bitterly. Ethan Miller, why are you asking me to come back? He froze. There's nothing left in New York City to keep me there. What about me? You're just leaving me like this? We've been together for so many years. Ethan Miller's eyebrows furrowed, looking angry. I interrupted him. You already have Emily Carter, don't you? Ethan Miller, I looked at him seriously. I can't revolve around you my entire life. I have my own life too. I'm not getting any younger. I should find someone to settle down with. Wasn't that what you said? Ethan Miller stared at me blankly. Julian Vance called from outside. Sarah, are you ready? The car is here. As I was leaving, Ethan Miller suddenly grabbed me. He yanked hard, and my wrist hurt. Who is he? His face was dark. He's a tenant at my house. Tenant? Ethan Miller scoffed. I can see your parents are practically ready to treat him like a son-in-law, aren't they? Sarah, you went back to Seaview, Maine because of him, didn't you? I said impatiently, think whatever you want. Let go. I'm leaving. Ethan Miller pushed me against the wall, grabbing my cheek tightly with one hand. His eyes blazed with fury, and he blurted out, What, did you two sleep together? Does he make you feel better than I do? Slap. Ethan Miller turned his head away. That slap was given with all my might. Ethan Miller's lip split, and blood slowly seeped out. He wiped it with his thumb, not angry but smiling instead. He grabbed my hand and placed it on the other side of his face. Feel better? If not, hit this side too. My eyes turned red with frustration, and tears streamed down uncontrollably. Ethan Miller, what the hell do you want? Tears fell on his arm, as if burning him. Ethan Miller suddenly snapped back to reality and awkwardly wiped away my tears. I'm a jerk, I said the wrong thing. Sarah, don't cry. Hit me. He pulled me up and roughly wiped my face. Don't cry. Hit me. I cried louder, trembling with anger, and pointed at the door. Get out! Ethan Miller, you disgust me. Get out! It was the first time I had ever hit Ethan Miller, and the first time I had cursed at him. Ethan Miller stood frozen, a bewildered expression on his face. Just then, his phone rang. After he answered, Emily Carter's voice came through. Ethan, where did you go? My stomach suddenly hurts. I'm at the hospital right now. Can you come stay with me? Ethan Miller didn't say anything and hung up the phone. After a long time, he suddenly said in a low voice, Sarah, if you ask me to stay, I won't leave. I wiped away my tears and said calmly, Go, Ethan Miller. Don't look for me anymore. Ethan Miller looked at me one last time, his eyes completely dark. Okay, he said. Sarah, don't regret this. Then he slammed the door and left. 14 I didn't know why Ethan Miller came and did that. Thinking about it, it was probably because I had always revolved around him, and now that I was suddenly gone, he felt a little uncomfortable. Perhaps in his eyes, even if he didn't like me, I should always be following him, clinging to him. But given Ethan Miller's arrogant nature, after being cursed at like that, he should definitely never come back. I wiped away a tear, feeling very complex, and also empty, as if nothing was left. I didn't end up going out with Julian Vance that day. When I explained to him with red eyes, Julie. And Vance didn't say anything, he just reached out and stroked my head. But then he came over again that night. My parents had gone out visiting relatives/holiday visits. When I opened the door, Julian Vance was holding a pair of white lace underwear on his long fingers. It was mine. My face instantly turned bright red. I snatched the underwear, clutching it in my hand, and said in a low voice, Where did you get that? Julian Vance looked completely innocent. It blew off your balcony. I was just out in the yard getting some inspiration, and it landed on my head. My head felt like it was boiling. I stammered, not knowing what to say. Julian Vance just kept laughing. He looked at the underwear clutched in my hand, his smile looking utterly punchable, making me unable to even thank him. What are you laughing at? I glared at him fiercely. Are you going to say how old I am and still wearing white lace? It's too outdated? Julian Vance smiled. Why would I? It's very cute. I lowered my head and suddenly felt my heart skip a beat. Get some good rest tonight. Julian Vance handed me a mug. I'll pick you up tomorrow. He closed the door and left. I looked down. It was a mug of hot milk. In the cold winter, the warmth spread upwards from my palm. I reached up and touched my heart. It felt like it was swelling. 15 Julian Vance and I didn't end up seeing the movie. The movie was at 6 p.m. Because the snow was too heavy, we couldn't get a taxi, and he hadn't brought his own car. I told him to check the last bus. But this big shot, who probably had never taken a bus before, confidently took me out after asking about the last bus at around 6 p.m. As a result, when we got to the bus stop, the bus had already left. We chased it for a long time, but it didn't stop. I was so angry. The 80 yuan movie ticket was wasted just like that. There was nothing to do. My makeup was already done, so we might as well go for a walk by the seaside. The seaside in winter was beautiful. The entire world seemed to have a cool, pale blue filter applied to it. The streets were covered in white. Blue signs stuck out of the snow, with occasional bundles of heavily bundled young couples talking and laughing together nearby. On the narrow street, the headlights of cars illuminated the falling snowflakes in a warm yellow glow. Julian Vance and I walked on the beach, talking intermittently. I had also looked him up these past few days. Julian Vance was actually a very famous genius painter in the industry. A single painting of his cost at least 6 figures. He had even had one painting auctioned for over 3 million yuan in London. What have you been painting lately? I haven't seen you paint at all. Julian Vance looked down at me. Not telling you. Fine, don't tell me. Do you think I care? You're so pretentious. I rolled my eyes. The cold, damp sea breeze seemed to burrow into your bones. Having stayed in the south for so many years, I wasn't quite used to such cold weather anymore. I rubbed my hands and blew on them. Julian Vance said teasingly, told you to wear more layers. You were too busy trying to look good. Cold now, aren't you? I glanced at him. A normal man would take off his jacket and give it to a woman right now. Are you even a man? I usually didn't talk like this. My friends all said I had a good temper, but for some reason, when I was with Julian Vance, I couldn't help but retort to him. Julian Vance raised an eyebrow. But I'm only wearing one down jacket too. If I give it to you, won't I be cold? This jerk. I used to think he was considerate, but it seemed I had been mistaken. I stomped forward angrily. If he wasn't going to give me his jacket, fine, I'd generate heat by walking. But Julian Vance grabbed my hand. His low chuckle sounded above my head. I can't give it to you, but I can share half with you. Saying that, he unzipped his jacket, pulled me into his arms, and wrapped me up. A faint scent of verbena surrounded me. I stood frozen, leaning against his chest, and belatedly heard the rapid beating of a heart. Like a drum. I didn't know if it was mine or his. He was very warm, and the cold was driven away. We stood there quietly, embracing on the beach, neither of us speaking first. I don't know when the snow stopped. The clouds on the night sky parted, revealing a few scattered stars. One of them was particularly bright. Julian Vance looked up for a while. Sarah, have you seen The Princess and the Frog? My mind was blank. What? There's a firefly in it, and he's always in love with a star. He named the star Evangeline. I nodded numbly. Uh-huh. And then? The waves near the shore had frozen. Layers of white were spread out, and the waves that kept pushing forward piled up snowflakes. Sarah. Julian Vance suddenly called my name. I looked up. Julian Vance was looking deeply at me. His eyes shimmered with soft light, gentle and tender. He slowly leaned down. I didn't move away. A slightly cool kiss landed on my lips. 16 Sitting on the plane back to New York City, I couldn't help but smile bitterly at the window. I had just said I wasn't coming back, and here I was again. But it was my friend's wedding, a major life event, which meant I had to come no matter what. Julian Vance insisted on coming with me, but after that kiss, my mind was a mess, so I refused him. He seemed very unhappy. When I left, he stared intently at me at the airport. "Sarah, if you don't come back, I'll come to New York City to find you." I nodded. I'm coming back. Coming back. I'll be back tomorrow." Just as I put the cash gift in my bag and sat down in the ballroom, I felt a gaze on me. Ethan Miller naturally pulled out the chair next to me and sat down. Emily Carter frowned when she saw me but still smiled and said, "Sarah, I heard you went back to Seaview, Maine. Why are you back?" "Came back for a wedding, and then I'm going back." Emily Carter seemed relieved, her smile widening. "Oh, I see. That's a shame. Well, you definitely have to come to Ethan's and my wedding then." I was too lazy to play games with her and said perfunctorily, "Okay, if I have time." During the meal, Ethan Miller couldn't seem to show enough PDA. One moment he was serving Emily Carter food, the next he was blocking drinks for her. They were leaning against each other, being affectionate and clingy. In the past, I would definitely have felt upset, but at this moment, my mind was filled with Julian Vance's kiss. What did he mean by that? Did he like me? What should I do then? Did I like him? Ethan Miller and Emily Carter were getting more and more affectionate. Emily Carter had been all smiles at first, but after Ethan Miller served her a piece of beef, her expression suddenly changed. She said stiffly, "Ethan, I'm allergic to beef. Did you forget?" Ethan Miller paused his movement, about to speak, when suddenly there was a commotion nearby. The table next to us was the groom's family table. The groom's family were unhappy that the bride's family had bought an apartment before the wedding. Fueled by alcohol, they started shouting, "Your family is trying to cheat us." The bride's family were also upset. It was agreed that we would contribute to the down payment together to buy an apartment, but your family secretly bought the apartment themselves and now want our family to pay for renovations. What kind of logic is that? The groom's uncle, drunk, pointed and cursed, "What's wrong with renovations? Is your daughter going to just move in with nothing? Is your family selling your daughter?" The two families argued back and forth, neither backing down. No matter how the bride and groom tried to mediate, they wouldn't stop. Someone started fighting, and in an instant, the whole ballroom erupted in chaos, dishes and plates flying everywhere. In the confusion, several wine bottles were thrown toward our table. Ethan Miller suddenly stood up and shielded me. A wine bottle hit Emily Carter on the head. With a sharp crack, blood seeped from Emily Carter's head. Ethan Miller didn't notice. He deflected the bottle in front of me and said nervously, "Sarah, are you okay?" Emily Carter's hair was matted with blood on her forehead. She stood frozen, staring blankly as Ethan Miller shielded me behind him. Ethan Miller finally noticed the injury on her head. He opened his mouth to say something, then fell silent. Emily Carter's eyes slowly welled up. I had a bad feeling and got up to leave with my bag. I could understand Emily Carter's hostility towards me, but I had already given up on Ethan Miller and really didn't want to get involved between them. "I'll head back first," I said quickly. "Thanks for just now." "Wait!" Ethan Miller instinctively started to chase me. Emily Carter said behind him, her voice choked with tears, "Ethan Miller, if you dare to go after her, we're breaking up." Ethan Miller's steps slowly stopped. After a moment, he looked back at Emily Carter. There was no sadness on his face, but a hint of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. "Okay," he said. Emily Carter's eyes widened. After a long time, she stared directly at Ethan Miller, tears streaming down. "Ethan Miller," she tilted her chin slightly, her heartbroken eyes filled with hatred. "You're going too far." Then she turned and ran out, looking distraught. 17 Walking out of the hotel, I lowered my head and asked, "Why?" Ethan Miller didn't speak. After a long time, he suddenly stopped walking and laughed self-deprecatingly. "Because I goddamn like you, all right? Sarah, I understand now. I finally goddamn understand. I was an idiot." He closed his eyes. His posture wasn't as straight anymore, as if a string that had been taut for too long had finally snapped, or as if a rock pressing down on him had finally been removed. Let's be together. I know you lick me. I'll give you everything you want from now on. I won't be with anyone else. Come back, Sarah. I looked at him for a while, and couldn't help but think how happy I would have been if he had said these words a few months ago. I had liked him for so many years. In the past decade, I had been tired, cried, and suffered. But I had never for a moment given up on my love for him. I had finally gotten what I had yearned for. Ethan Miller was reciprocating my feelings. But all I felt inside was amusement, and an indescribable fatigue washed over me. I shook my head. No. Ethan Miller grabbed my shoulders. His eyebrows furrowed, and a flicker of excitement crossed his eyes. Why? Sarah, are you going to tell me you don't like me? I looked up into his eyes. The man I had loved for 10 years, who had changed from a boy to a man. His appearance hadn't changed much, but I felt that time had shifted, and everything seemed different. For the first time, I knew clearly that we couldn't go back. No one waits in the same place forever, I said calmly. Ethan Miller, liking you was too hard, too exhausting. I'm tired. I don't want to like you anymore. A sparse dampness fell on me. It was raining. The rain gradually grew heavier. In the rain curtain, traffic flowed endlessly, and the neon lights glowed strangely, shimmering with a dreamlike brilliance. Ethan Miller's gaze was fixed on me. Raindrops fell into his eyes, and that spark slowly extinguished. His lips slowly parted, and he said tremblingly, Sarah, don't be like this. Give me another chance. I'm begging you. Ethan Miller was a very proud man. In all the years I was with him, I had never seen him plead like this. He said, he was begging me. But who should the past me, who loved him so much and suffered so much, beg? I suddenly understood that love doesn't fade away gradually. It disappears in a single moment, all at once. The fire that had almost burned itself out, once extinguished, at a certain point, could never be rekindled. I took Ethan Miller's hand away and said softly, it's too late. Ethan Miller's eyes and eyebrows were wet with raindrops. His clothes were soaked. His damp hair stuck to his face. The rain felt as heavy as 1,000 pounds, layer by layer, breaking down all his pride. He blinked. A drop of water hit the ground with a patter. I didn't know if it was rain or tears. 6 months after returning to Seaview, Maine, my relationship with Julian Vance hadn't progressed much. We still enjoyed each other's company, but every time the topic of making it official came up, I felt like I wasn't ready. My previous relationship had been too painful. I was a little afraid. One day, I went to see Julian Vance and found him packing. His suitcase stood beside him, and he was folding clothes. I don't know what I felt inside. My heart suddenly tightened, and I couldn't breathe properly. Are you leaving? I asked blankly. Yeah, Julian Vance said without looking up. Why so suddenly? What time is your flight? 2 p.m. this afternoon. Leaving soon. I stood there, saying somewhat stiffly, oh, okay. Silence fell in the room. I should say something, but I couldn't say anything. I stood for a long time before managing a smile. Well, that's good. It's only nice here when it snows. It's nothing special in the summer. Julian Vance looked up at me. Isn't there anything else you want to say? My forced smile must have looked terrible. Have a safe trip. And? I couldn't help but feel a stinging sensation in my nose and lowered my head to hide it. Nothing else. Julian Vance smiled slyly. Oh dear, you're about to cry. My eyes were stinging, but he looked up at me from below with that irritatingly playful look. Crying? Really crying? This person was absolutely infuriating. Now I couldn't cry anymore. I pushed him away angrily. Are you crazy? But Julian Vance just laughed, the corners of his ES flicking upwards. I know you'll miss me. I'll be back the day after tomorrow morning. Don't forget to pick me up at the airport. I was startled. Huh? You're coming back? Of course, he said, giving me a look. He wiped away a tear from the corner of my eye with one hand. I paid a year's rent, I said reflexively. Then what about after a year? Julian Vance stroked his chin, pondering. After a year, I figure our mom won't charge her son-in-law rent anymore. My face flushed. I reached out and hit him. Who's your son-in-law? Julian Vance grabbed my wrist and pulled me into his arms. The playfulness was gone from his smile. He gently lifted my face. In a muffled kiss, he said, "Wait for me to come back." 19 I received news about Ethan Miller again 6 months later. It came from a friend. Did you know Ethan Miller is suffering from severe depression? A few days ago, he mixed sleeping pills with alcohol and swallowed a bottle. Luckily, his assistant found him in time and took him to the hospital. They pumped his stomach and saved him. She said cautiously, "I heard he was still conscious when he was taken to the hospital, and he kept calling your name." I fell silent. Do you want to go see him? After hesitating for a while, I still refused. Our lives should have diverged a long time ago. For better or worse, I didn't want to have any contact with him anymore. But I didn't expect Ethan Miller to come looking for me. The snow in the north came early. It was only December, but it was already snowing heavily. Seaview wasn't very noisy. The snow fell quietly. Julian Vance and I were walking home after grocery shopping when we saw a dark figure standing near the street lamp down the road. A thick layer of snow had already accumulated on him. Ethan Miller just stood there quietly, watching us, his eyes filled with emptiness. "Sarah." His voice fell into the snow, trembling slightly. I nudged Julian Vance. "You go up first. I'll be up in a minute." Julian Vance frowned, then said reluctantly, 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. After he left, Ethan Miller walked up to me. It had been almost a year since I last saw him. He was thinner, and his eyes, which had always been sharp, were now dim. "Is something wrong?" I asked him. He just stared at me intently, his eyes slowly turning red. He said hoarsely, "Sarah, I can't let go." "What should I do?" "How did you let go? Teach me, okay?" I said calmly. When it hurt enough, I let go. Ethan Miller looked somewhat lost. He bowed his head slightly, as if my words were a knife stabbing into his flesh. "We just missed our chance." His eyes turned red. "If I had realized sooner, maybe we could have." "No." I shook my head and smiled bitterly. "Ethan Miller, there was never a matter of missing our chance between us. As long as I didn't leave, you would never have thought of me. We were destined not to have a future." Ethan Miller's lips moved. He seemed to want to say something but couldn't. A wet streak ran down from the corner of his eye. Perhaps it was melted snow. I took his hand inside when I saw the fresh scars on his wrist. "Ethan Miller, I used to think that if you couldn't have the person you loved, the world would fall apart. But now I understand. In this world, everyone can get by without anyone else. You'll let go eventually too." I checked my watch. It was almost 5 minutes. Julian Vance was so petty. If I was late, he'd start being passive-aggressive again. I turned around and waved. "I'm going, Ethan Miller." After walking a long distance, I suddenly heard a heartbreaking shout from behind me. "Sarah, I can't let go. I'll never be able to let go in this life." I didn't stop walking. "Hey Sarah, I can't let go." I was taking off my shoes when Julian Vance leaned against the wall, talking to me in a strange voice, constantly glancing at me. I said casually, "Mom wants us to come over for homemade lasag." "Nah, later." "Are you coming?" He immediately forgot about the previous scene. "Yeah." 20 news of the genius painter Julian Vance holding an art exhibition hit the trending topics. My friend was incredibly excited and called me. "Please, please, please, you know Julian Vance, right? Can you get me a ticket? I'm a huge fan." I went to Julian Vance, but he only gave me 1 ticket. "That's all there is, just for you." How pretentious. I gritted my teeth, but when the day of the art exhibition arrived, my body honestly went there. I really wanted to see what Julian Vance had painted in this small town. The exhibition was titled Evangeline. It was a little strange that there was no one at the entrance. The exhibition hall was dark, and I felt a little uneasy. Did I get the time wrong? The next second, all the lights turned on simultaneously. I stood frozen. In the exhibition hall, large and small, scattered throughout, were portraits of me. Standing on the balcony drinking beer, walking on the beach in an overcoat, lowering my head, blushing and smiling foolishly. I never knew Julian Vance had painted so many portraits of me. I also didn't know how he remembered them, but the expressions and postures were incredibly lifelike, and the tender brushstrokes were filled with love. Every scene from when we met had been captured by his brush. I walked along the corridor towards the back and saw that the last painting was an oil painting. In the quiet night sky, 2 stars nestled together, emitting a soft glow. My eyes couldn't help but feel a stinging sensation as I looked at the person who walked out from behind the painting. Julian Vance smiled. "Sarah, will you be my Evangeline?" My eyes turned red, but I couldn't help but smile. Almost running, I jumped and threw myself into his arms. Yes! Extra chapter, Ethan Miller's perspective. My friends asked me what I liked about Emily Carter. I said she was pure, quiet, and seemed safe. But in my heart, another person's image surfaced. I shook that image away. Sarah was just a friend. And could only be a friend. I actually never thought Sarah would leave. She had been with me for 12 years. How many 12 years are there in a lifetime? She had spent almost half her life with me. Neither of us could do without the other. I didn't expect her to actually leave. She said she went back to Seaview, Maine, and wasn't coming back. I felt it was absurd. She wasn't coming back? Then what about me? After hanging up, I went to the balcony to smoke. Let her go. She was just a friend. I had plenty of friends. But the panic in my heart was uncontrollable. I couldn't light the cigarette for a long time. I felt I couldn't let this go. I had to find her. I had to ask her clearly why she wasn't coming back. I was here. Where could she go? But the moment I saw her, I suddenly understood that this time she was serious. I finally panicked. When I saw a new man beside her, I was filled with rage. I had never been so angry. I said terrible things and she slapped me. She told me to get out. I got out. When I got back, I found the Snoopy pajamas in my closet. I knew she had bought them as matching pajamas. I didn't say anything at the time and even wore them a few times. She was always so happy when she saw me wear them. She would smile secretly behind my back and even take pictures. When she was leaving, she told me to throw away the pajamas. I don't know why I didn't. I put them in the closet. I took out the pajamas and just stared at them blankly. I belatedly realized that I had actually liked Sarah for a long time. In fact, I was the one who was more dependent on her. But deep down, I felt I shouldn't like her. I still remembered what my mother told me before she died. Don't like someone too much, feelings can kill you. Feelings had killed her. She had spent her entire life on one man and ended up losing her life because of it. I understood the liking something can disappear. Love isn't reliable. No matter how much 2 people love each other, they can't escape growing tired of each other, or even turning against each other. Lovers will leave. If I was with Sarah, she might get tired, she might fall in love with someone else. But friends won't. Friends can be together for a lifetime. I knew Sarah liked me. But I pretended not to know anything and just kept deceiving myself with the idea of being friends. But it was only now that I knew she would also get tired, also hurt. She would also leave. I tried to win her back. I told her I understood. I swallowed my pride and begged her. Sarah loved me so much, how could she bear to make me sad? But she just smiled calmly at me. "It's too late," she said. I knew I had no chance. The love in Sarah's eyes had disappeared. It's okay, right? If she could let go, I could too. For a year, I didn't look for her. I didn't look at any news about her. I pretended she didn't exist in my world. I ate alone. I slept alone. I lived alone. I didn't think about her anymore. I thought I was better. I had moved on. Until one day, I suddenly started having insomnia. I couldn't sleep anymore. I started taking sleeping pills. Later, I started saving them up. After saving a bottle, I swallowed them all with alcohol. I didn't feel much pain. I just felt that there was no point anymore. When I was unconscious, I dreamed of Sarah. After she left, I never dreamt of her again. This was the first time. It was snowing in the dream, very cold. She was still 17 years old, putting her red down jacket over me, and scolding me, "Ethan Miller, how can you be this old and still not know how to take care of yourself properly?" Tears instantly streamed down my face. I held her hand tightly, but Sarah slowly pulled her hand away, little by little. She started to grow up, turning back into her adult self. The smile on her face was a little tired. She said to me, "Ethan Miller, I'm leaving now. You have to take good care of yourself from now on." Tears streamed down my face. I begged her not to go, but she just slowly pulled my hand away, turned, and left. A suffocating pain came from my chest. It felt as if she had pulled out my heart and taken it with her. I finally understood. I had never let go. I would never be able to let go in this lifetime.